All right, my friend. But as I was getting to there, it seemed to be more political ideology that was getting censored than it was anything at the start. But then once there was a vaccine and it was rolled out, if anyone had any skepticism of the vaccine for whatever reason, whether they're vaccine sensitive or they had an adverse effect from one of the initial shots from one of the initial pharmaceutical companies, all of that was censored. And
poo-pooed. You're made to be a literate fool for questioning it.
Censored. And Shawzie, a lot of alarm bells based on my history and what I do for a living is whenever a company or a government can demand content being removed from the internet to where you can't find it. You can't find it. The technology that you and I are going to be discussing here is where it becomes a problem, because the technology that's coming is based on data that's accessible on the internet. So you can literally change history by not reporting history. You can see Paul Revere's
well, isn't that the case with all history, Schmidty, devil's advocate? I mean, the to the victor goes the spoils. I mean, don't the people that win in history write history, and the people that lose, we don't even know they existed?
I think you're right.
You're going to write about it?
You're right. But this would be like Paul Revere being removed from history.
Right.
And there not being a Paul Revere moment. So Paul Revere was important. Paul Revere.
When a tree falls in the forest, does it make a noise type thing?
Yeah. So when doctors and scientists were doing their Paul Revere moments for things that they were seeing with their patients
and being deplatformed,
their voice was removed. The stuff that they had wrote, like a lot of the top doctors, one of them actually helped to create the mRNA virus, mRNA vaccine. Dr. Robert Malone was one of the first to be censored and deplatformed, even though he invented the mRNA technology, which became the vaccine. And he was raising red flags from the beginning because he didn't necessarily know if it was going to be good or bad from the beginning.
Right.
Whenever the data started coming out, he had skepticism right out of the gate because he's a good scientist.
Well, he's a scientist, yeah.
Right. So he's like, okay, this really hasn't been pushed out into a mass population. We don't know exactly how this virus is what it's going to do, because they didn't know much about it at the time, and that's evolved over time, right?
So let's circle back.
Yeah.
And so these alarm bells, they have focused you, and you determined there has to be a better way of getting information and making information available to people, and information available to people not controlled by power.
Right. So thanks for tightening me. I got in a rabbit hole there.
No, I'm just trying to.
No, it's truthful.
And what we're trying to do here, folks, is literally Schmidty has this great idea. I'm trying to learn the idea, and we figured the best way for his idea to come to me and then out to you was for me to try to dig in and.
So as someone that I taught myself to build websites, and I'm not an expert coder at any level. I don't consider myself a genius in that regard. It was a means to an end for me to create a business to help small businesses do what they do. But what I have always envisioned, like the perfect scenario, Shawzie, would be, why can't I just go somewhere and get something information-wise that is closest to the truth? Doesn't have any agenda on it, not controlled by a corporation, not controlled by a government, no monopoly, no money touching it on either side, just to have a baseline to know, so I have a baseline to know where I can base a foundation to make the next best decision towards the health and safety of my family first, myself, and those around me. So all of us had to deal with our parents potentially dying from a very serious disease. No one, I never claimed that it wasn't real.
My mom almost died from it.
Yeah. Really? So it was very, very serious, right? Very, very serious. So, but as science evolves and a narrative that seems political and profit-seeking overshadows the doctors and the scientists that are raising red flags, and those people are hushed, now you're dealing with public safety of not only my family, which I take very personally, but of the entire globe. And we're doing, once the experiment started, people that were asking questions more and more were getting deplatformed. My own personal doctor got deplatformed from Twitter because he was simply affiliated. He got red flagged, put on some, what we've come to learn is a government list, and the government went to Twitter and told them to deplatform him. So his opinion, even though he works with hundreds of patients, sees these things rolling out in real time, giving real data and his feedback, that was gone. So again, that's going to fall right into what we talk about with this technology.
More red flags, more red flags,
Red flags.
more red flags. And so these are the straws. They're piling up on the camel's back. COVID was the last straw, or there was just one day Schmidty was watching TV and finally the camel just collapsed right in front of you.
Well, I think
what broke its back, Schmidty?
I think, so going back, I mean, you and I don't know that we've been friends on Facebook for a long time or following each other on Facebook for a long time. It's been a while, but we've known each other since
over 50, and we've known each other since seventh grade.
Since seventh grade, so we know each other well. We
were 13 years old.
We know each other well. So a little bit of history for me. Like, I've always looked at things skeptically, and I've always questioned the media because they don't always ask the questions that I feel like are the best questions. One of the things that we're going to learn in this conversation between us is I've come to realize that the quality of questions that we both ask and expect answers to really provide us with the quality of life that we need.
I don't think that journalists ask questions anymore to ask questions about quality of life or even journalism. I think they ask questions because they're told what to ask because they're getting paid money and sponsors want eyes, and it's about money. It's not about journalism or truth.
Well, and I think this particular, you asked why it came to a head right here, is I think all those years of seeing the things, not just having to do with health and whatever, like the different political agendas that are on each channel. And, you know, I went through phases of watching different news channels to not watching any of them because they were
Right.
whatever. And it can't, you know, basically to me, COVID was the actuation because I saw what I've come to realize is just tyranny, like the power aspect that you and I talked about in our first conversation. And like, how are we as people going to start getting some of our freedom back, start being able to like...
So can I pose it to you like this way, Schmidty? So basically, Chad Schmidt, as he developed intellectually, as he developed as a man, as he developed as an American, as he developed as a human on our planet, he had come to believe in certain things. And he thought, as I thought growing up, the journalists in our society were there as a check upon our government to really, anytime a red flag that you've mentioned several, you would hope they would be our watchdogs and would pounce. And some scumbag politician would come out and perpetrate some myth or lie, and of the 20 journalists there, 15, 18 of them aren't up, you know, on the take, and they actually pursue it, and we get real results, and we can really keep these things in check and balance. And we learn things, and you know, like when sometimes the FBI and the CIA, Schmidty, when they wanted to know things, they like would go to the editors of these big old newspapers and say, "Do you know what's going on?" And they would. Right? I mean, these dudes were sources of intelligence back in the day. Now they're just another wing or arm of a political party, and so we've lost our truth-seeking apparatus that our founding fathers kind of envisioned would be one of the other checks on our government besides the internal checks and balances. And so you've circled through this view, you've come to the conclusion there's nothing out there I can trust. There's nothing, and even if there is something I can trust, is it skewered? Is its viewpoint something? I don't think.
Well, I think we ran right over the middle right there, which is, I think you just hit it perfectly. So there have been, one of the silver linings to this whole thing, like with how it happened as quickly as it happened, and love or hate Trump, I think you and I have talked about it. You don't like him at all. I like certain things about him. Just
I think he's like a good president.
From a policy perspective.
Whatever. You do 100 things, the dude did like 40 of them good, but he's really like 60 bad.
He's really kind of irrelevant in all of
Right.
this. To me, he's just a distraction and a symptom, I would call it, based on what I've come to rationalize. But so the silver lining was alternative parallel platforms started. Basically, people that were getting deplatformed from Facebook. There were alternative social media platforms that were promising not to censor people. When people started getting removed from YouTube, alternative platforms like Rumble and other things started popping up, and people that were not only the ones that were getting censored and deplatformed, obviously were looking for a space, because imagine being a doctor and a renowned scientist or whatever, and saying, like, having the purest of intention, and then all of a sudden, basically, everything that you've done your entire life is ripped out from under you.
And be brought into question and politicized.
Politicized. But I mean, in real time, I mean, people, Jordan Peterson.
Well, people think that what they do is what they project that onto others. So if they think that I'm doing shady shit, like I'm doing shady shit, well, this other person has to be doing it too, right?
Right.
Don't they project their weaknesses and their fears on others sometimes?
Yes. But you know, back to the silver lining, all of these different brave doctors, scientists, independent journalists from both sides, all sides of the political aisle. This is apolitical. This is about division and about truth, right? We are way too divided as a society, and it's not that we're looking for reasons to be more divided or argue about things, but the media and our politicians are playing us like a tennis ball. Like, we're just, you know, we're going nowhere. But this, again, so back to this, the silver lining piece of it is these other platforms, people have basically found ways to continue messaging, and in a way where they're not bound by what questions that they can ask and what red flags they can raise. And so they're able to go out on their own, and someone like a Joe Rogan who has 20 million followers in some way, shape, or form can say, hey, pay attention to this person just because I find them to be truthful. Not only that, but whenever they say something that turns out to not be right, they quickly pivot and will say, hey, I got that wrong. Like, so going back through all this, Shaw, just to turn back around, like, I began to think, okay, so what if the next virus comes out, or let's say there's another big thing that happens that we all are looking to our leadership or our media to solve the problems so we can respond and ask questions and, you know, get to the heart of what we need to really physically do.
And nothing like that exists.
And nothing like that exists. And so that's a problem. So we've got a bunch of brave doctors, scientists, and whatever saying great things, literally thousands of hours of podcasts or things that a person could read if they're interested.
And here's the
and
deal, we
all,
don't even know if they're right or wrong. We would just like them all to be able to talk on one thing and see who's right or wrong.
Exactly, but the thing is, they're all going in different directions.
Right.
And like, who's right, who's wrong, whatever. So as a web developer, I don't know how.
Isn't that, Schmidty? That goes right back to what you were saying, bro. That's them. Sorry for hitting the table. I know I'm not supposed to do that. That's intentional division of us. They're dividing us intentionally by dissipating knowledge in from one platform, and they're like, okay, kick them off this. The government sees it. We kick them off this. Where are they going to go? They can't. Even if they go somewhere, it doesn't have the same capabilities to reach that others do.
Right.
So it's a perfect way to divide.
Well, it just bothers me, like this conversation alone, just talking about the division and how it happens. That's actually a phase in what has come to be a battle plan for me to create this truth-seeking apparatus that we're getting to. But like, so again, all these different intelligent people are sharing information.
So what is your vision, Schmidty?
Okay.
We've mentioned it. What is
so
this vision?
How
do you see this? And tell everybody out there, was this like a thing like, is this like the time machine in Back to the Future where he was the Doc Brown or whatever fell down and hit his head and it came to him? Or is this idea?
Well, this is not an original idea per se. Like
that's what I'm getting at.
Yeah.
So this is something that you're building on. You want to make an idea better.
I listened to the people that were raising the red flags, and I started to see that there was symmetry between some of them. Meaning it seemed like they had think tanks and things in the periphery that they would have a discussion and a really good conversation with somebody, and they raise all these flags and make these good points. But then the podcast or whatever ends, and that that story, that thing that's out there that I'm so interested in now that I'm like, okay, where'd that go? I want to hear more, and what are we doing to raise more awareness about these things?
And then isn't that what comment sections are for? Not to, I mean,
It is.
But you want a better.
But you have to be.
section.
But you have to be in that conversation
Right.
to really know that it's going on.
Sure.
Right. And it's podcaster A, influencer B, and some random channel that I just happen to be tuned into. So to answer your question directly, where did it come from? So there's several different podcasts that I listen to a lot. And during COVID and lockdowns, it had a lot more time to exercise.
So there was some
walk.
good that came out.
This is a silver lining,
Right.
right? So one of the people that I've looked to, and he's got his own podcast channel. He and his wife. His name is Brett Weinstein, and it's the Dark Horse Podcast. He said it one time, and let me see if I can say it without butchering it. He has to get credit. I've tried to reach out to him to just tell him that I'm getting ready to start re-uttering his words in some way, shape, or form to give him some credit. I hope that he would reach out to me, and I think part of where we're going is my goal is to tag him in this and get him involved in the conversation. We'll get to that later, but it's something to the effect of we need a functional truth-seeking apparatus, something that's able to sort signal from noise, basically separate fact from fiction, to where we as people can look at information and make better decisions for the health, safety, and future of ourselves and our family. So you can't find that from one channel. You can't find that from one talking head. You can't find it from any news channel, because they're all selling different things and they're all going in different directions. So when he said functional truth-seeking apparatus, I know he's a very, very smart guy, and I think he may be in think tanks talking about this thing that's being developed, and maybe it's a part of Truth GPT with Elon Musk or something. I don't know. So I'm like, okay, we need a truth-seeking apparatus, and we've tried to come up with names for it and what it meant. But so basically, the goal would be to take all of these different conversations that are going in all different directions and compiling information in one area. And before this whole AI awakening came about and ChatGPT became popular, like we were having these conversations before that hit.
Right.
So now that we have a platform that can take all of this different data and content and questions and organize it in such a way that we can, let's say we could take the top 10 podcasts that were ever talking about one specific topic, okay? And we take all those questions and all that data and just kind of smash it together, right? And then that basically creates a summary of what the smartest people, the most intelligent people have been talking about and saying. That would give other people that might be a skeptic or not fully agreeing with everything that was said to ask questions. So this truth-seeking apparatus, to me, kind of as I was developing a website in my head with the small team I was working with, is there is no real truth unless we're talking about physics or ones and zeros, right?
Right. And that can even be found out to be a lesser included truth, because more is eventually learned, and then it's just a foundational truth as opposed to a real truth.
And it's different culture to culture,
right?
Location to location. Truths can vary based on.
Right. We understand, and I was going to delve
It's
into
nuanced.
that and ask you about that.
It's
We
nuanced.
understand the truth is not. Is there even any real truth? So I get that.
But imagine a space that you.
It's almost like it's a godlike type thing you're envisioning, Schmidty, and people would like somebody's self-conscious, where you ask yourself a question, or you're praying to like say it's a prayer to God, and they answer it back, but it's instead of it praying to you're actually asking a question of something that you could, I don't know, it's like it's so above and beyond what is available to humans. It's like if you can really ask something and trust what it says, that's like such a different level. I don't know. It's like the best Big Brother of all times, but it's like, I don't know.
It sounds like pie in the sky.
Yeah.
It sounds too good to be true.
Well, that's if you ask something and it's always right, what's the point of anything else?
So the goal for me is, like, let's just say we wanted to pick any topic, and you were super passionate from one aspect of it, and I was super passionate from the other. Let's not even say it's political difference.
Whatever.
It's just a nuanced difference of what our opinion is on that particular thing. Imagine if we had a device, an apparatus that we could both trust, that is going to take all the data from the top scientists on any, let's say we're picking a scientific topic, and you agree to 10 different scientists and all their published data and all the stuff that they've done. And I have my own list, and I have some protagonists, some other people that are thinking about some nuanced arguments on either side, because there's going to be social.
They're building a new type of airplane, Schmidty. Let's just say that. That's simple, right? Because is like 10 people say build it. Here's the best way to build it with this type of wing, or this
That's
type,
fair. That's
right?
fair. And that's probably more subtopic specific.
But
Which
it's a
would
way
allow
that
us-
we, but
Yeah.
I'm sure the engineering, my point being, there
100%.
could be experts of all varieties that could then, if you took all the best experts in the world of building airplanes, one would think that what they discussed and came up with would then build the best damn airplane there
Right.
was.
Right. So imagine that there was a thing there that could not only analyze all the data that's out there, but what's coming with AI is it will be able to get more into the aero and all the specific stuff. Like our current package does not have that ability, I think, to think scientifically. It's going to be based on what a person says over there and a person says over here. So it's really an argument. It's fallible.
So what do you want to do with your
Well, right now, as technology is, it's phase one.
Right.
Phase one is you and I want to
It's
talk
here.
about.
It's here. We're here. We're here one day, and it exists.
We're going to talk about this airplane and the wings. Let's say we're just talking about the wings on an airplane. Which are
Right.
better? I've got my opinion, and my team that over here. You've got yours. We've agreed to be respectful of each other. We've agreed that we want simply what's the best airplane. We don't want. I don't have ties to
There's
Boeing.
no pride involved.
There's no money.
It's just
There's
what's
no.
the best.
There's no money attached.
What works the best?
What works the best? What if I get into an airplane under the worst conditions? Is my family not going to die?
Yeah.
I mean, that's what I want.
Yeah.
I don't care beyond that. It needs to be the safest, fastest, cheapest, whatever the things that we want to put on.
I don't know if we want it to be the cheapest.
Well, as cheap as it can be.
I'm kidding.
So let's say we've agreed that this apparatus will get kind of the core truth of the science as we know it, and it might only be like 60% of whatever truth
And these
is.
type of devices and this software and hardware is being in development right now.
It's software now.
And we don't even know the capacity, how much it's developed. I submit to you, and I think you would submit right back to me, that if the government's working on this shit, then it's secret. It's all secret. Get out. And
Well, it's a major space race right now for from China to Russia to U.S. and also corporations, IBM, Microsoft, Google. They're all in
that's
this arms
another
race.
thing we're going to talk about.
Yeah,
It's
that's for
corporations
later down the
are
road.
like governments now.
Let's
I know,
get this
I
on
know.
the table.
I know.
There's a lot of folks. We're going to have a lot of the nuanced conversations about all this stuff that's going on, and we'll get to that with a vision of where I hope this goes, and the reason why and I think you got excited about something that I said because you saw a vision of something that you feel, although difficult to get there and having a lot of obstacles getting there. Seems like I've never heard it before. You logically couldn't say, this might work.
Yeah.
I don't know. So prove me wrong, right? So let's say we're agreeing to have a podcast and we're only going to talk about this airplane wing or whatever it is. We agree on 60% of stuff. So we can come to the table and eliminate any division or anything that we might think the other person thinks that doesn't agree. Like we can sit down and say, we agree. Do we agree with this right here? Read this summary, come to this meeting prepared to agree here, and then let's argue on the nuances of it. Let's ask questions and say, here's what I believe will get us to 65% truth.
And you also envision that this AI is going to have avatars in it where these avatars are certain people's intellect.
Yeah, so every person is going to be able to download a version of themselves and turn themselves into an avatar.
So then one could be having these conversations with the greatest experts in whatever field of endeavor.
No, it's well beyond that, Toby. It can take everything that you know. It'll ask you a series of questions
Well,
for
it's
as long as
everything humans know.
Well, yeah,
yes.
so let me just work through this because some people that are watching this have no idea. So you'll be able to soon sit down with a software and it'll ask you a series of questions. You'll be able to record everything that you've ever said, have a debate about whatever topic that you want to talk about, and it'll basically gauge where you are in your knowledge, and it'll be you. Like it'll basically say, here's how Toby would answer this question based on the data sets that we have, which is everything he's ever written, everything he's ever said that's on the internet, right? So
Yeah.
it's limited to that, not private conversations that you've had.
Sure.
So let's take that one level up. Let's imagine that you want an assistant, and you want to call it Shaw GPT, or you want to call it Shaw. You name the name.
Right. Shawzie Revere.
And you want Shawzie Revere. That's a good one. Paul Revere, Shawzie Revere. You want this AI version of yourself to be much smarter than you, because you want this version of you to know your weaknesses, because you want to come to the conversation ready to have a highly intellectual debate. So
Take some emotion out of it.
you would trust your own avatar. So let's say you want to take the download that you gave, like you have this long ongoing conversation with your own personal assistant. It's learning more and more about you, just the nuanced you yourself, without anything else. And you say, okay, Shaw Revere, I want you to go read these 10 books. And I trust these authors. I've never read anything on anything they've ever published that I wouldn't probably suggest is mostly accurate. But you can always question those things as they come in. But so within seconds, you can take your avatar, which you're creating, and you basically put in a data set of the 10 topic books on this, and your avatar will literally be able to tell you what you think you are going to learn from this and how you're going to apply it to this conversation.
Well, think how much smarter you can make yourself. So say Schmidty, like I've read, I don't know, 3,500 books in my life or something. Well, I can't possibly remember and recall everything I've read, but I have kept a list of everything I've read since 1999.
Right.
So I could just take every book I've read since 1999, tell my avatar, read this.
That way you might have forgotten some things.
Because I have forgotten it, or maybe it's their subliminal.
If you haven't,
or however the brain works.
If you haven't, we need to have another podcast.
Right. Just call everything out. Yes, it's Shawzie. But yeah, that's like a really cool possibility. And this is kind of like these wow moments for me. Like, it just things hit me like that. Like,
well, who are you going to trust more than your own avatar?
Right.
That you can call bullshit on whatever your avatar just says to you, and you're like, I don't still believe that. And it can say, here's where I got this information. You asked me to read these books, and it can give you the counter argument in real time, just like that. And you can
and you're like, maybe that's also how I helped for what made me formulate this concept or idea I had later on because of something, and it can help you make connect. I just think that.
So this conversation rapidly evolved. Yeah, infinite. So this conversation rapidly.
We've got off topic from.
So I don't know how we come back to that particular thing.
Let's circle back, Schmidty.
Yeah.
Let's circle back to the fact that you want this truth-seeking apparatus to exist. You want the ability to find the truth as something that is truthful, that you trust, that you believe in, that you don't want a tyrant or power to have control of.
Yeah.
And you want to push this concept and this project out. You want to involve other people. You want other people to all come to the table here. It's a worldwide community project wherein the intellect of the world can surpass the intellect of one individual. Clearly, two brains are better than one. But how is it that two brains are better than one if they're not working in conjunction, right? So you can make the statement two brains are better than one, but maybe that is or isn't true. But if you have 10,000 brains working in conjunction and all these things going on, certainly that has to be better than one brain.
Yeah, so I think we can go in several different directions here because there's a bunch of questions that are probably enlaced in that what you just said there. Coming back to the think tank, let's just try to wrap that up a second. I don't feel like we really cleaned that up.
So tell everybody what your thoughts are on the think tank.
I'll say, so whenever I first started having these conversations with the small group of people that have helped develop the original idea rapidly changed here in about the last 6 months or so. And that changed in my own because new data came in for me, and that's rapid AI deployment. So I'm trying to think of how do you build a website and how do you do these things to get people to trust it. Like, I think we could develop something. We had a rough idea of what we thought it might look like back then based on, we know basically how websites are built. We know how think tanks operate. When AI, the latest AI rapid deployment happened from Chat GPT 3.5 to 4, when all the top AI people on the planet started saying, this could get out of hand. This could get, it's going to be really, really good for a minute, but if the wrong entity gets a hold of it, it could be really, really bad. So like for me, and what I started saying, like I don't want to trust a corporation that has financial interest. I don't want any government, whether ours or another, wielding power and having absolute tyranny.
None. Governments mess everything up.
So my Paul Revere moment was, as this AI is coming out and all these conversations are going on at IBM and Google and all these corporations that I've worked in my business to help in some way in what I do in the technology realm, I don't trust any single one of them. Not even, I definitely, you look at Bill Gates at Microsoft, or even Elon Musk, I think much more respect for, and his general vision. I poke holes in the things that he does sometimes or says, but he seems to be doing the right things for the right reasons. Whereas like from the profit side and whatever, Bill Gates not so much. Even Elon Musk doesn't need to be able to wield the power that this technology is promising.
Well, if Elon Musk is going to have the power that he has to make money, because capitalist societies don't put people in power of big corporations if that corporation isn't making money.
It's not morals first, right?
Right.
It's profit first, which is
First.
capitalism.
But that's capitalism.
That's how.
And that's why Marxism, Leninism type shit develops, because
as a counterweight to that.
Yeah, there has to be a counterbalance.
There has to be tension.
There has to be looking out for workers when the main goal is making money and taking advantage of workers.
I would never argue for pure capitalism.
You can't.
And I, as
And
much
there
as I
can
de-
be-
as
I
much as I
detest
despise
communism.
as much as I despise communism, and
We have
Marxism,
communism in our country in some aspects.
it keeps
already.
some tension there to where you keep having to prove your arguments. I'm looking at the other side. Right?
Social Security benefits in particular. I mean,
This is another.
That's
These
another
are channels that we're
outlet.
going to. So my absolute Paul Revere phase one is every person that can hear this, every person that will listen, needs to understand what's coming with AI, understand the power that it's going to grasp, and just quickly, ChatGPT as it sits can create thousands and thousands and thousands of pages of propaganda, something with a little lie laced into it, just enough to be believable. Like right now, we're believing everything because.
Well, if there's big truths, little truth. If you're telling big lies, little bitty lies are simple to tell.
Where are big lies happening? Everywhere.
Everywhere.
So,
All day, every
so
day.
you're going to lace in these little propaganda pieces that seem a little more truthful, but they have a little hint of something that's got an agenda attached to it. So we the people, and I'm not talking about Americans, I'm not talking about white Americans, I'm not talking about
the humans.
a color, I'm talking about no categories.
We the humans.
We the humans. We're talking about human flourishing, and we're talking about having, we're
on the cusp of something, Schmidty. I think it's so hard for you to verbalize because it's something that it's in the future. We can't see it. You have a vision of it that I have not attained yet. I'm trying to see your vision of it and understand it. But I think it's one of these things that is so out. It's almost like science fiction. It is science fiction.
ChatGPT is science
You're
fiction.
trying to tell a science fiction story to people with words that it's like in the Alaskan language where some of these tribes have like up in Alaska they got like 70 words for snow, right? Mm-hmm. We just have sleet and snow or whatever. Some of the words to describe what you want to say may not even exist. Is what I'm saying.
We have to awaken. We must awaken to the story that is developing in front of us and all around us. We are a part of this story, and this is nothing to do with fear. This is nothing to do with I'm the only one saying this, because I'm not. The only reason I'm saying it is I pay attention enough to know that the smartest people in this realm are raising red flags, and our media and everyone is so divided in talking about this thing over here or that thing over there, and we're all fixated like we don't even know what to pay attention to. That's when the big bad things really actually happen. Like look over there and something over here that we don't want you to see is happening. That's what's happening with this arms race for AI. It is vastly essential that we as people, humanity, takes control of who controls the data sets that go into this AI. So data sets is something that you use in coding language, and it's something basically it programs what you can and can't learn from something, right? And so my problem with ChatGPT right now is based on all information that leading up to 2021. The newer releases will include more. I don't know if it'll be current or all things. I don't know how it's going to connect to all things that get downloaded on a daily basis. There might be some kind of censoring needed there, right? There might need to be some filters, because if one of these AI systems takes off and just starts printing a bunch of online propaganda, it will change the data sets of the apparatus as it sits right now.
You seen the show Star Trek Next Generation, Schmidty?
Vaguely, I
Do you know who Data is?
I do, yes.
Data. That's what this is. It hit me. The truth-seeking apparatus is Data. He knew everything. He knew everything. He could do anything.
Because he's a cyborg of some sort, right?
Anybody that asked him a question trusted him. I mean, he was basically a walking god. Mm-hmm. Everything he said was fact. There was no bias to it. There was no political leaning. You know what I'm saying? Right. And that's maybe the future. And I'm not saying date, but it's funny. It struck me that like all this shit that has happened on Star Trek, the holograms or the phone, the communication devices or thing. If the human brain can imagine it can be done. Basically, I mean, what you're imagining has been imagined, but just we didn't know what we were imagining.
Well, and I'm following people that are imagining it and actually creating it. And so again, I want to not try to sound like I'm an AI expert. I've never pretended to be something that I'm not as far as an expert in any field. When I started building websites, I wanted to replace myself because I thought I would be better suited doing something else to build the company and to help clients, right? So this for me is not about any of the ideas being my own. It's just the things that I see going on.
This is the future you see.
And we're not organizing in a way that we can benefit off of the questions we have. We need to remove division wherever we can so that people focus on this very important thing that is not just important for us right now, the future of our future kids. We are at a moment in time, and a lot of people in technology and people that are rapidly learning it that aren't aren't savvy in technology, that are learning it for the first time, are saying that this is like one of the comparisons I heard. He's the godfather of AI. We'll link to him at some point, but he's like, this technology is likening to the wheel or the printing press.
Well, that's what I'm saying. It's like trying to think what this is going to do down the road when you can't see the future. It's like it is the wheel. What a perfect example. You know, the wheel developed into, well, I'm not going to get into the history of the wheel, but I know that.
That's another podcast episode.
That's a huge, huge podcast episode, and very interesting why the wheel would develop the way it developed in domesticated animals. My God, I almost dove down that rabbit hole. What can I ask you a question, Schmidty, about what you're talking about, and kind of try to come full circle with this, like your concerns, the COVID-19 and the lockdowns and the things that happen. Could it be possible that the government wanted people to feel like they actually were, like the mask wearing? I always wondered about the mask. Like, are they just having people wear masks so people feel like they're doing something when there's nothing that can, like, we can't do shit. There's nothing that we do will matter or not matter. It's going to run through us just like every other damn virus has in the history of the world. It's going to circumnavigate the world once, it's going to circumnavigate the world twice, and probably 3 or 4 more times as it mutates, like everything else on our planet does, because we have a ball of radiation in the sky that mutates shit, right? So, was it the government trying to make everybody just feel like, and what I'd like to link it to, Schmidty, is one of our most respected leaders in the history of the United States of America, Eisenhower. Like they were coming in and briefing Eisenhower about these bomb shelters they were building. And Eisenhower immediately goes, these bomb shelters aren't going to save a soul. He's like, no. He's like, how can we tell people to build these bomb shelters to protect us from nuclear war when we know they're not going to help? And finally, they just came to the conclusion, like, it can't hurt. Let people think it's their...
Yeah, you hit on a very important topic, I think, that it wouldn't have come up probably except for nuance, but it was definitely a part of the evolution of my thought process and where we were going. So There's a longer video that I shot with one of the people in my small group that we could talk about later. We talked about watching it, and we'll link to it at some point in all this. But so people feel division, right? And people don't want to be divided. Like, we are a social animal mostly, right? And technology, and there's some people that just aren't. Some people are antisocial, some people don't want to be around other people, and that's just the way they are. Like, people are different. People as a whole want to be, like, they want to be closer and not divided from people. And when they are, they're not very likely to, if there's a big crowd of people over here that are doing something that doesn't seem harmful, they're just more apt to just kind of fall in line with what's going on, right? They're just follow along. And I believe the government may, you could look at an argument that masks were used as a tactic to take control. You can look at it from an aspect that masks were used as a outward sign that we're in this together and we're trying to solve this together. And so you can be the devil's advocate on both ways there, right? So from a psychological standpoint, using masks for me never seemed like the right idea, because I went straight to the data, went straight to the companies that made it. They said all these things that what masks did and didn't do as far as viruses go, and that's a whole nother topic that will be for doctors to talk about in the think tank that we're going to create, right? But the mask, what they did provide is some unity. Like, you're walking down the street, I'm walking down the street, and when we don't know if this thing's going to kill every single person that gets infected by it,
hey, we're working together.
Hey, we're being safe, bud.
Yeah.
Stay 6 feet apart. I mean, what's the science
Social
in that?
distance.
We can get in that. That's not science either. But like, but it did bring people together a little bit. It's kind of like 9/11, right? When all that happened.
So it made people feel like they were contributing to society as a whole in fighting this virus. Even though they weren't, it gave them the mental feeling they were.
Yes, and so to circle back around and just hit on this point, because I think the way we're doing this particular interview, it does, like, I'm going to link to like an 8-minute video that I'm just going to do this, just kind of where my mind was with creating the idea, and we'll link and talk about that in the future. But what we came to the understanding of is the government, the global governance that mandates these things or says.
And this is not a conspiracy.
No,
theory.
we all need to do this, and everybody needs to fall in line and whatever. That's okay if we're in a major catastrophe. If an asteroid is flying at the Earth or whatever, that's not going to completely destroy the Earth. Let's say we all have to, like, get on the same page here, and we're not fighting wars anymore, or whatever. We're
running out of water.
Singular mission. This is what we're doing, folks. And if you don't, you're going to be one of the first that goes, right? So there's a need for that in the worst case scenarios. And so we need structure. We need authority whenever the things are really, really bad. But the problem is, as this whole thing actuated and COVID hit, and we started seeing mandates and lockdowns happening in other countries, and they were talking about it here, then all of a sudden our kids were out of school for 2 weeks, and then all of a sudden our kids were out of school for longer and longer time, and now our restaurants are shutting down, and they're having to build new wings to restaurants based on science of a moment. Once that happened, and it seemed like we were no longer in control anymore. Like, restaurant owner, business owner, whatever, they dangled some money at you. Doesn't matter if you worked your whole life to have this business and build it up. It could have got destroyed overnight, including your entire generational wealth that many people lost a lot of things, right?
Yeah.
So at the end of the day, what it all boiled down to is whenever these media apparatuses, political apparatuses, structures that we look to and public institutions that we look to that started to fail us, they have organization, they have planning, they have funding, and they have the power to to send out messages very rapidly and get people in line. We have no organization, we have no plan, we have no team, and we have no real leadership. Like, some people hopped on the Trump bandwagon and thought this was going to be the next thing. I only saw, like, that's just a blip.
Not sure about that.
Alexa is talking to us. So that's just a blip, right? Like Trump getting elected or Biden getting elected or whatever. Is that one of our phones?
I don't know. It's kind of weird.
Just
But I
let's just pause for a
Yeah, check mine. Mine should be like on airplane mode, so I don't think.
I can easily edit this out.
That's fine.
Yeah, I don't know what's going
That
on.
was weird. Do we have Alexa somewhere?
Right.
How are we doing time-wise on this one?
We're under an hour.
Okay.
I think this is good.
Yeah.
Anyway, let's just continue on.
Continue on.
So we were talking about
Well,
as everything actuated, everything started locking down. Like the people on my inner circle and the people I was listening to on podcasts, like it went through phases. First phase was, okay, this is really bad. We got to kind of be okay with the way things are going. And then as questions and red flags started raising, and like we start talking about how this is affecting our kids because they're out of school and they're not being socialized, and how many generational years of things are we going to have to recover for, that this a whole nother podcast channel and truth seeking apparatus will have to solve those problems for our kids later on. Like, we have no plan, we have no team, we have no leadership. They have no incentive at all to give us the education or the resources that we need to solve the problems for ourselves. And so that to me was probably the thing that I used to like listening to political debates or someone talking about a topic and just having an argument, but kind of going back to that circling back to that moment in time when like I said, if I listen to a podcast I'm really engaged in, it's a topic I'm super excited about. 3-hour podcast, I don't care, man, just give it to me. Where does that go? And what are we doing with that? So like circling back around, we have no plan, we have no leadership, we have no team. It caused me and a small team to create a battle plan, to create this truth-seeking apparatus. And it's evolved, and no battle plan survives contact with the enemy, as you know. And we knew this thing was going to quickly outrun all of our headlights, but we also knew that we couldn't simply rely on those same old mechanisms of thinking, media apparatuses, and the apparatuses of things that revolved around a narrative that seemed to go from wanting to help us to more and more seeming like it was just them wanting to retain and keep power. And so my call out to you happened because of the AI. All right, you need to drink?
No, I'm good. Sorry.
Yeah, my call out to you basically was a Paul Revere kind of thing, because I trusted you as an individual and wanted your opinion, and you've had some experience with interviewing and just talking and
right.
So
from a professional capacity, doing stuff like as an attorney, like questioning people, but also I've done the shit show and interviewed local politicians, police chiefs, things like this.
Right. So after the AI Paul Revere awakening, like we've got 3 phases of the battle plan as it sits. Phase 1 is to prevent tyranny right now. Like, we can't, if something happens, when I say tyranny, use that generally. Don't use that as one individual or one apparatus or one politician. You know, it's not that. If the next thing happens that's really, really bad, do we really want the same mechanisms that we've just gone through and lived this experience for the last 3 years? Okay, but right now, how would it be any different? It wouldn't. So the goal of this thing is AI awakening is happening. We sense that if any government or corporation or individual gets sole power of this and controls the data sets, basically what happened during COVID can happen at anytime, because they're going to control what the information that is put into the artificial intelligence can even think. So and as some of the things that are happening, and one of the things I just addressed with you this morning, America is likening more and more to me, and I didn't really see it personally until here recently, to a China communist social credit score. And so, like, when things happen and your government can censor you or not give you a position or do different things to you to stop you from saying the thing that they don't want you to say, the wheels are off. I mean, that's the next. So what if I'm the guy that, for whatever reason, the next thing that happens, I'm the first one that sees it? Maybe someone like, maybe it's an alien that landed. Okay, let's just say that. Maybe it's an alien that's landed and I'm the only one that saw it. So someone would have to trust me to say, I know where it is, I know where it landed, it went into a hole. We have to go after this thing because we don't know what's going on. If they just labeled me crazy, and we couldn't have that debate, and no one would follow that evidence and take the next step, whatever that is that just landed out there isn't able to flesh out in real time, right?
Right.
And so we have to have open conversations. We have to allow absolute free speech, unless it's someone out there harming, like doing specific harm. There's rules in place for that, right? This truth-seeking apparatus to me means everyone has a seat at the table. Doesn't matter what country you're from. Doesn't matter what sex,
Well,
age.
eventually this stuff will be so smart that really any speech should be allowed. Like,
Yeah,
even
quantum computing
right,
is going to get us there.
Right.
Like, so phase one is we have the technology that we have the problems that we have. We have to deal with what we've got with a vision of the future, that we know these things are coming. So I would associate this to a period of time where we just have to make do with what we've got.
Let me submit this to you, Schmidty. So basically what we're at, we know, say if you would have known back in the day there was going to be a wheel, and you knew nothing else about it, but you also knew that eventually there was going to be cars. But you didn't know how the hell there was going to be how did we get from a piece of stone that will roll to something that propels itself? This is the same thing. We know there's a wheel. You know there's a wheel. You've got a pretty good idea how this wheel is going to work and how you can implement it, and things we can learn from this wheel. But we don't know anything about combustion engines yet, because we don't even know right?
What does that even mean?
Right. So we have the wheel. We know there's a wheel, and we're trying to figure out where the wheel's going to go. And we want to try to direct we want to make sure the direction the wheel goes doesn't roll itself into the garage of tyranny, right? We want it to be for the use of all mankind. We want any person on the planet to be able to use it without any interference from governmental entities, corporate entities, tyranny, or power. It's an amazing concept. It's something that I had never thought of in my life until you introduced me to the subject. And it's really why I find myself here today asking you questions about it.
Well, I appreciate it. And I know we're bouncing a little bit all over here, but I think we keep coming back and keeping the flow going here. So phase one would be no tyranny. Like, we have to be able to, part of these conversations, part of all those people getting on those other platforms, is to have a place for more and more people to go slowly, to start trusting and listening to other people that are saying things out there, right? That works for as long as the internet doesn't get shut down or we don't lose power, right? So then we'll have to go back to something archaic. That's a whole nother think tank and a whole nother discussion.
That's a whole nother discussion.
But so phase one is no tyranny. Like, what happens if the next COVID lockdown happens, or the next crisis of whatever, manufactured or real?
Right.
What do we do as a society that we make better decisions next time, right?
And folks, don't think that we can't do this or learn from it, because I want to submit to you guys that this is kind of the equivalent of the Great Depression. A complete breakdown of societal norms based off of the reason there was a Great Depression is because of the Spanish flu, because of World War I ended, all the troops went home, all these diseases from boom all around the world, and shit hits the fan.
Production ceases in many capacities.
And the eventual outcome was the Great Depression.
Similar to what we just lived for the last 3 years.
And then it was so bad, folks, that like at no other time in the history of the United States have we had a president go more than 2 terms, and FDR was a 4-term. I mean, he only served 3 and died. But my point being that the Great Depression happened. Our society, our government said we can't have this shit ever happen again. And we're going to put means and mechanisms into place. We're going to put our smartest people on this. And you know what? We're even going to do some communist type shit where we do some socialism that a lot of people that back then didn't want any part of and basically considered it communist and not socialist. My point is we reacted to something like that so it would never happen again. And that's what you're trying to do here, is react to something like that so it never happens again.
And I think we're getting there in this story, and I like how we've gone here. I think this is a much cleaner version of a past conversation.
Right.
So phase one, no tyranny, right? We can agree that's a good thing.
We agree it's a good thing.
AI awakening, it's important that every man, woman, and child that we can logically explain what potentially is coming. There's a bunch of different things that needs to happen. Let me just touch on a couple, and we haven't really talked about. People need to understand what's coming and what the impacts of that's going to be from all levels, from changing how jobs are changed, changing how education's going to necessarily changing what we need to be changing about our education system, what our kids need to be learning now to prepare themselves for coming technology that is not stopping. This isn't a pie in the sky, we need to just prepare ourselves in case. It's coming. There's no doubt. Okay, so we just need to have those conversations, figure out the best way to.
It may even be here.
Well, I mean, that we'll get there. I don't want to get in that rabbit hole.
I know.
I believe it is here. So this is very urgent. I mean, I can't say it enough. It's very urgent. If a person comes in at this minute mark or whatever this conversation ends up being, and they hear one thing, start paying attention to what this conversation is saying about AI awakening, AI rapid deployment, and one of the things we haven't mentioned is quantum computing, but that's going to come in a later part of the explanation phase of what we're doing here. So phase 1, no tyranny, AI awakening, and we want to explain a game theory that we've discussed a couple times, and I think so. It's a combination of a game and a think tank, and using AI currently, and then what that will evolve into in the future, which is much more advanced. Right now we have what we have, right? We've got the original wheel. Nothing's advanced or better about it. I mean,
I kind of see it as King Arthur's Round Table, and all the experts of the greatest respect come in and sit down at this table. They speak, or we create avatars in their name. We kind of get their opinions. We say, oh, this is what Einstein would have said, or this is what Elon Musk would say. And then Elon Musk can come in and say, as Elon Musk, I agree, I disagree, or you draw eyeballs in that way because of all these famous people sitting at the table. But it's also every normal day people submitting their ideas, right? I mean, it's this round table of ideas. I mean, is this is this how you see it? Am I seeing it the right way you see it, Schmidty?
Well, roundtable ideas, I don't know exactly. Maybe you need to.
Well, I mean, because it's this concept of we're in a think tank, and a think tank is.
Oh, you're talking about us and not what's going on out
there.
Right?
Yeah. Okay. I'm talking about your concept conceptually. This gaming, gaming concept, the think tank idea with all. I mean,
let me explain why first and foremost.
I mean, it's a round table type idea is what I'm envisioning.
And let me
you expand on it, but I'm just trying to set it up. I'm just trying to throw a pitch to you, Schmidty.
A softball.
A little softball, as it were. And, you know, that's what I see it as. What do you see it as?
Okay, so it's several things. First of all, we're afraid, we're divided as a society. We don't know what's happening. We don't know what to trust. We don't know where to go, right? Wouldn't it be nice to have a place where we could go, have open conversations and talk with smart people, engage with other people, ask the top scientists that we trust the question that's right on the tip of our mind that we think is should I do this or should I not do this? Should I do this to my kid or not? Where can I just go right now and touch it and say, this is something I can trust, right? So the reason why this think tank is, to me, relevant in this phase is this GPT technology, which is rapidly deploying. Right now, OpenAI is working on it. Elon Musk has entered back into the game with what he's calling Truth GPT. Google's working on it. Microsoft working on it.
The Pentagon is working on it.
So
is the Communist Chinese Party.
So all of them have control over the data sets that of all they own these mechanisms, these software programs that each of these are creating for current technology, GPT. They're limited by the information that's put into them. Like ChatGPT has anything that's in the internet. They're just looking at all the different data, and that's the intelligence that helps.
What if they got all the information from the NSA, Schmidty?
What? That's a whole nother topic and platform that I think I told you in a previous conversation that there will be nothing unhackable in the future.
Right.
So that's something we have to deal with.
Well, that just hit me. This is what new things hit you every time.
It's where we are.
Yeah.
So the idea behind this, for me, this truth-seeking apparatus phase 1 with a think tank game theory is to, as I mentioned, I think we got off track just a little bit. So, Truth GPT, OpenAI, ChatGPT, Microsoft, IBM, China, Russia, they're creating basically the same thing that they can use and manipulate themselves. Kind of an open source concept of loosely what GPT does, right? And so why would the people want a think tank that they could trust? Well, the idea behind the think tank, which we'll start talking about a little bit more here, I'll show some rough graphics to kind of give people a picture of what it might look like, is we're going to build this high-level expert think tank based on the top experts in the field, and we're going to ask it the best questions, and it's going to give us the best output that we can trust, as close to the trust, the least wrong.
Well, it's
The
science. It's science truth. It's an attempt to get the truth.
But it'll always be changing, right?
Of course, but that's science.
If a really
That's what I'm
smart,
saying. It's like science, Schmidty.
if a really smart person raises some red flags and questions this point being made, the summary of the thing that we're talking about, that person has a way in this game to work themselves to raising the red flag, and this game will basically pull that question into the think tank and have to necessarily address that question, and then it'll work it out. It'll send that expert back out. Here's what we came up with. Do you agree? Disagree? That
like
kind of thing.
real think tanks work.
Right? Yeah. So
I mean,
so this is a version of that to start, because we are just starting a game here,
Yeah.
right? But the output of that, Shawzie, which is really important, and I just want to make sure that we all understand what that is. So we create a think tank. It's going to give us data output based on the questions that we ask, based on everything that we put into it, the questions that we ask. It will change necessarily based on new information that it gets, and we have to vet that new information that goes in to make sure we still trust it. This thing will have a rating based on all the experts that can touch it. Is it 63%? We're always trying to work to 100% trust,
right.
or out. I mean, if it's a bad idea, if it's something that's really wrong, I want to know if I'm coming in, it's only 30% of the people that I trust believe this output, then I'm like, okay, I got to take that with a grain of salt a little bit.
Right.
Okay. Or people that I really
Or
trust.
there must be there's something right about it, but something wrong about it too.
The people that I really trust that have never lied to me before, that have a high trust ranking that we're going to give them in this game, and they say things that are theories. They admit when they're wrong really quick. So the good thing about these people is you can rate them not on necessarily they got something right or wrong, but they were able to take new information and quickly change their mind based on fact that they see in that moment. So I may go to this thing, and if it's decision on the next vaccine that rolls out, and it's the people are saying this thing, I can go to it tomorrow, and some new data they might have got from another country comes in.
This is basically human science, Schmidty.
So it's you going in and
It's
touching
human
it.
science.
So rather than you having to go through a politician or a media apparatus or a vaccine maker to get this, it's people working on what is closest to truth in that second.
Right.
This is a 24/7 non-stop mechanism that is starting off in a very crude structure and going to build out as technology increases. But again, so we're putting a question in, a data set is going to be pushed out the other end, and that data set will feed the truth-seeking apparatus. This is a think tank, and let's discuss a little bit about what I envision for a think tank right now, because we're going to start, the new exciting thing, folks, is we're going to start a series of podcasts based on different topics that we're going to start just to start trying out this game in real time. We're going to invite experts or people that are well read or super interested, open to learn more about each topic, to kind of be the protagonist or the head person at the seat of the table, asking the questions and using the game to give us the data sets that we need to plug into our truth-seeking apparatus, which will be some form of a GPT technology right now. So assume, let's just assume Elon Musk is creating Truth GPT, right? And he's made that open source so that you and I can live in a community, and we're gonna take this thing and we're gonna poke it all the time. We're gonna make sure that we're asking it the best questions. We want the best science. We want what's gonna make us most safe, what's gonna make our kids most healthy, ourselves most healthy. Like, this is designed to give us human flourishing, right? And it doesn't have money attached to it as far as a corporation saying, no, you can't say that about this particular diet because we're selling products over here, or you can't do that because we're selling a vaccine over here, or I don't like your brand of coffee, so you can't say that this thing is better than the other thing. I mean, that's based on what we're doing. So that's phase one, is launching this game theory, and I think, I don't know if this is a good segment to kind of launch into that. I do want to talk about what it looks like a little bit more. I think that would be exciting to
Yeah.
people. And maybe take what you know, summarize kind of where we're at, and then let's move into the next thing, and maybe ask me the question that you think you might still be fuzzy on, or I don't know. And we can just take a breath and pause for a second.
Yeah, let's take a breath and pause, Schmidty.
Okay.
I got.
So you want to hit?
Yeah, let's go ahead and shut her down.
Okay.
I just got to think. I've been other things. You know, I start thinking about stuff, and I'm a little unfocused.
Yeah.
Trying to. It just made me think. Like you said something. I was like in